I'm Susie Leonard, and we are mother and daughter.
And we're both longtime preschool educators.
We come from a family of teachers, of educators. I think teaching particularly young ones, little ones, preschoolers, kind of runs through our family's DNA. My parents owned a preschool when I was young, and Amanda and I, after a number of years with educational experience, owned our own preschool, located kind of on the border of Venice and Mar Vista, again in Los Angeles, called The Kids Place. And as I look back, there was something just very innocent and pure about it, as compared sometimes with the over worry today about preschoolers going into kindergarten already knowing formal academics. It was enough for kids to connect with each other, connect with their teachers, have fun. And I think that kind of was the beginning of forming my philosophy on the kind of teacher I wanted to be and this kind of school I wanted for us to create. I got a master's degree in marriage, family, child counseling, and part of that program required an internship, and I was really lucky that I got accepted to a therapeutic clinic and school called Julianne Singer, which was, I think that they were kind of a step ahead of their time in terms of how they dealt with kids with a variety of challenges, kids that we now call neurodiverse. And at that point, this was a lot of years ago, it was the accepted belief was that these children, who might now be diagnosed with a variety of issues, including autistic spectrum, were the product of inadequate parenting. Bruno Bettelheim was the expert at that point, and he made a reference to refrigerator parents. By contrast, Julianne Singer took a family system approach, which was much more supportive and accepting, and really did feel like many of the issues that the kids were exhibiting came in from internal DNA issues. And so I think that contributed again to my belief and understanding.
I think what was really important to us when starting The Kids Place is that we wanted to create an environment that was inclusive of all different kinds of kids from different socioeconomic backgrounds, but also kids with a variety of challenges, what we used to call special needs kids. But it was really, really important to us that we didn't create a strict delineation between special needs kids and typical kids, because we felt and we feel that all kids have special needs. All kids are unique and have their own challenges and their own strengths, and we wanted to create an environment where we could be responsive to that, where we could meet kids where they are, and take it from there and build from that. And so that's what we did for 20 years.
And I think we were pretty successful, partly because of our belief system, and because of the fact that we had a high ratio of teachers to kids, because of the way our classrooms were set up, where children were allowed to explore and make discoveries. dependent on their interest and where they were developmentally. I think that lent itself to kids who were at very different places developmentally to feel comfortable and successful. But because we were able to forge that relationship with our kids, when we started a kids' place, we were looking to create a community, not just a school. And so we wanted to include families, parent involvement, connections with each other.
Our approach was very much play-based, child-directed, experiential. I think we had an element of what is called an emergent curriculum, where you spend a lot of time listening and watching kids and figuring out what they're interested in, and sort of figuring out what kinds of projects or activities to do based on what their interests are. I don't think that we subscribe purely to one philosophy or another.
Exactly.
We've taken a bit of pieces of different things.
Exactly. And we believe strongly that it is our job to get to know each child and to some extent follow their lead.
Yeah, I think that the philosophies that we're familiar with, all of our education, it sort of fits into a toolkit, and it's something that we can draw from. But but what we decide to do with a particular kid, how we decide to work with a particular kid, is completely shaped by who that child is and what they need.
Dewey was very instrumental to us, as was Piaget. Who's very hands-on. We believe we called ourselves developmental. That was, if there was a philosophy, when I did tours, that was how I introduced us. What are we? We're developmental, which is not that many different than many schools. If you go to a Reggio school, they are developmental, and even Montessori to some extent is developmental too. And all of these schools use developmental in a slightly different way. In order to help each child grow, you have to really know who they are, where they are developmentally. You also have to know how they learn and what they're passionate about, because every person in the world learns significantly more if what they are interested in is something that they can look at, and
to find what resonates for them.
If there's an approach, if there's something that sums up who we are and what we did, it was to look at each child as an individual, to really get to know them, develop the relationship we had with them. And we had an expression in our philosophy that said we want each child to grow into the best version of themselves.
Which was very important to us, that it was the version of themselves. Not our vision of who they should be, or their parents' vision of who they should be, but who they truly are.
Which I think is something that might be lost in today's world.
What success meant for us in our program was again about who a particular child was. So what our vision of success would be different for different children. Our goals for different children would be different.
And success in particular classrooms would be different as the kids
for a different age group. So yes, our goals in the younger classrooms were really about forging those early relationships, because we were often the the first people outside of their family to really bond with these kids.
Right.
And it was so the classes were heavily relationship based.
Right.
As the kids got older, some of the teachers of the older kids, I would say, emphasized more autonomy and helping kids develop life skills.
Right.
And that was more appropriate for a 5-year-old.
Although we gave kids a lot of opportunity to lead or to be in charge of...
To make their own choices.
That's right. There were times during the day where we came together as a group, and that is the beginning of being a member of a group. So we always had a circle time that had maybe a little bit of singing, a story, a game, and that was their...
It wasn't so much about whatever information we were imparting. It was about us all being together as a group, and for kids to learn that sometimes it's not their turn. Sometimes it's time for them to sit and listen, and that sometimes it is their turn, and it's everybody else's job to sit and listen to them.
Right. So that was the beginning of them realizing that they are not the only person in the world, and which is a really important lesson that young kids need to learn to be successful in life.
And it's not really something that a lot of kids encounter before they are in school, because naturally they're in a family where they are the center of attention, where they are loved, and where everything they do and say is important, which is as it should be. But at some point they need to learn that that's not always the case.
Our older classes had put a huge emphasis on helping kids to learn to problem solve about something that they were doing. How do I solve this problem of block building or whatever, but problem solving conflict. And so that would be at the heart of discussions that they had and goals that they had for their kids. Again, gave kids a lot of room to maneuver and make choices. But there was also a lot of guidance from teachers in terms of helping them to get to that point, because kids don't naturally know how to solve problems.
I'd say that part of what we did was what's called scaffolding, where you meet a kid where they are developmentally and you support them at that developmental level, but you are also helping them build and reach toward the next level. And I think we sort of saw that as our role as a teacher, to be very supportive, but also to help them stretch and to challenge themselves.
We did a lot of talking. We did a lot of acknowledging and supporting, and introduced the concept of, especially as the kids got older and reached a more sophisticated level in their language understanding, of negotiating with each other, of talking with each other.
And then I think it became more about asking questions rather than telling them things. What do you think you can do about this? What do you think you could say to her? What do you think, and so I think with the littler kids, it was mostly narration, telling them what it was they were doing, giving them the language for what it was they were doing and what it was they were feeling. And then as they got older, it was more about asking them questions and helping them to figure out how to solve problems on their own.
I saw the teachers of the older class spending much time with individual kids whose feelings got hurt by something that somebody else did. And so there was extended conversations about how certain behavior elicited responses from from other kids, and how they might
even with the littler kids, we had talk about that, because there was often confusion about why somebody did something to me. Why did you hit them? Because he was crying.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he was crying because you hit him. And there was a lot of teasing that out with them.
Yeah, there are different issues, between 2.5, 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds. And so I think a
big issue that came up often with primarily with the older kids was frustration about not being able to do something perfectly right away. Often it came up with drawing, not being able to make a perfect heart or a perfect horse or whatever it was.
I think our emphasis, and I think partly because of our own education, that there was a big emphasis on the emotional and psychological responses of kids. Again, based on who they were as individuals. We would see some kids who tended to be more impulsive and needed to know why so-and-so didn't want to play with them because they were continually wanting to be the boss, or they were grabbing things. And then on the other side of that were kids who tended to be a little bit more timid. So your goals for different kids were very different.
Well, I think that one of the most important things for being able to address the needs of all different kinds of children is that you have enough teachers in the classroom. I think we were very, very privileged in that we had such a great ratio that we really could work with kids one-on-one if necessary, or 3-on-1. We could facilitate small group interactions during the day, and I think that makes it easier to address the very specific and divergent needs of all different kinds of kids.
Yeah.
But again, I think the most important thing is to really, really know the kids with whom you work and know what their needs are, know what, that this is a child who, when they're upset, needs to climb under a table, or this is a child who needs a bear hug, or this is a child who needs to be left alone. And it's really variable. And if you don't know that about a particular kid, and the way that you react might set them off rather than help them.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of schools that when they discover from a parent that their child has a diagnosis or has special needs, that require that they have somebody with them called a therapeutic companion. And for the most part, we wanted to see first.
Yeah, we've preferred not to bring somebody in from the outside if at all possible.
Right.
If we did need somebody, we wanted that person to become integrated into the classroom.
Right.
It's really important to us not to ostracize the child.
Isolate them, yeah.
And not to make it clear to either that child or the other children there that there was something that needed fixing or helping. And so if we had an aide in our classroom, they would often interact almost as much with the other kids,
right.
and their goal was to help the child who they were supporting become more a part of the classroom, become more a part of the group.
When a child is dysregulated, sometimes it takes them a period of time to calm their bodies down. And sometimes we would sit next to them. Sometimes we would say, when you are ready, we can do your favorite activity. Sometimes we would talk about it. Very often we wouldn't talk about it. I think my
Again, it
experience
would depend on the kids.
Yeah.
Some kids, the more you
talked about it, the more
upset they would get.
Yeah, exactly.
So we would maybe sit next to them
Right.
and play with somebody else, or even
Right.
play by ourselves.
Exactly.
And wait for them to come and join in.
Exactly. Sometimes I would get a book out and sit next to them, and 3 other kids would come and join in, and suddenly you would see them perk up a little bit and focus on
Yeah.
what the book was.
I think with the kids who are of the age that we worked with, the 2.5, 3-year-olds, mostly they weren't. I don't know if they either weren't self-aware enough, or they weren't, or didn't have the language to really tell us what they needed at that point. It was our job to really watch and see, and especially since kids of that age, when they get upset, often lose the language that they have. But I think as in the older groups, there was more of an emphasis on self-advocacy and identifying, this is what I need in this moment, and when I feel like this is what I need from you, or this is, I need to go get my special blanket or my special toy or whatever it was, or I need to be alone, or whatever that was. I think that the teachers tried to help them develop the language to express that, but with our little ones, it was more about helping them to get through it.
Yeah. Kids learn by playing. That's their method. Young children, even our oldest kids, are still in the concrete phase of development, meaning they need to experience it, they need to touch it. They learn about the world through play. Our room was set up with a variety of different centers. We had a kitchen area where all sorts of kitchen things were out there. We had dress up, we had cars, we had blocks, we had things.
We had dolls where they could mommy them or doctor
them. Exactly. It's what they do naturally. They imitate the grown-ups in their life, and it's how they learn
how the world works.
That's right, exactly. Play is right up there at the top. There's so much.
We would often, well, not often, but occasionally get parents who would come on tours or come and visit and say, "Is all you do play?" And we would kind of say, yes, it is.
It is.
And it's amazing how much they learn while they're doing it.
Yeah. And there's different kinds of play. There's imaginative play, but we had a lot of manipulatives and puzzles that people look at as more educational, but that's play for a child as well. So, all areas of development, they're cognitive, they're physical, they're social, they're emotional, can be addressed through play. And
meanwhile, they just think they're having a great time.
Exactly.
And they're happy to come to school every day.
Exactly.